How we doing, everybody? Just trying to get stuff set up here. All right. It's looking pretty good. How we all doing? Hey guys, Terry, how's it going? Tristan, you better hook up another Nor-vise for sure, brother. Get back into it. All right, guys. So today we're gonna tie a variety of cranefly larvae. Something kind of fun with this pattern is you can tie it in a variety of sizes, and you can tie it in a variety of colors and hook shapes, and you name it. For instance, a good example of this is here is a Gamaris hook from Arex. I believe this is in size 4 or 2. It's the NS172 killer hook. I would not recommend this particular hook for a lead fly if you're going to have a trailer behind it, just because of the shape of it. It does tend to wonky the other fly, but maybe as an anchor fly or by itself, what have you. It's phenomenal. Kind of gives it that wavy look, or wiggly look, whatever you want to call it, while it's going downstream. Why I like cranefly larvae, here's another example of a different color, more what most of you guys would assume cranefly larvae would look like, kind of that fleshy color. I don't know what you call them, a biologist of sorts, the other day kind of gave me some really awesome education on cranefly larvae. Supposedly, some researchers believe there's more varieties or more species of cranefly larvae than there are mayflies. So very interesting. Some are in the soil or in the silt that's along the stream side. Others are actually underwater in the silt line. I did not know that at all. So he said, when you have craneflies, in most fly fishermen's eyes, are really effective after a heavy rain. And the reason is because, let me get my tripod here set up, because that bank erodes and then those cranefly larvae get washed downstream. He also said that cranefly larvae in the fall, especially with heavy flows, and then in the spring when the snow melt goes off, that they can also be equally effective, whether you're seeing after a heavy rain or not, because that silt at the bottom of the river is getting moved and pushed around with heavy flows, and they get knocked loose. So pretty cool. I forget the exact color names of this Kylie's Exo Skin. I apologize. I have a whole variety of them, but it still stands. If there's that many varieties, change it up a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything by any means, and some of them are still going to have that whatever color the earth is around that area, sunlight, what have you. So a little variety. Another one on a Gamaris. This one has some copper undertones. I really like it. So I think the first one we're going to do on a straight shank. This is a 571, the FW 571 from Arex. I'm going to tie it in a size 4, quite large, I know, but it's a perfect hook for it. And we do put lead on these. I do. Actually, some of them I don't, but majority I do, just to simply build up a midsection. just to give them a little bit more thickness, and it gives that Exo Skin a little something to bite into as well. So I'll take my thread back up to the top here, up to the eye, just shy of it, and put in some, let's do some 030 lead-free wire, if I can find the end of it. There it is. All right. Take that back. Let's take it back to about in line with the hook point to wrap our lead on. I apologize. And let's do 10, 11 wraps of this. Give it a nice midsection there. This will get them down. I haven't had a ton of luck with weightless cranefly larvae, and I haven't fished these extensively, this particular pattern myself, I'll be honest. I've used different, the same stuff you use for squirmy wormies, things like that I've used. But I'm pretty new to this Exo Skin, but I really like it, and I like what it looks like in the water as well. So I think they're going to be super effective this year and in the future. Alright. So to the Exo Skin, I'm going to tie one in this tan color here. If you can see the light shining through that, I'm not sure if you can. Let me wait until my other screen catches up here. Look at the texture on this sheet here. It is just awesome. So all of that is going to show. It just has that kind of a true fleshy skin-like. It's very stretchy appearance. So I cut a 1/4 inch wide strip of this Exo Skin. You don't need to be perfect with your strips. Mind you, when you wrap this, you are going to stretch the heck out of it. And in doing so, you're going to take out all those imperfections. It's not even going to matter. So you just end up with a strip. It's about 4.5 inches long. And get my camera to zoom or to focus here. That's all you need. So as you can see, it's nothing perfect. Got some little ridges in there. Doesn't matter. So just shy of the eye, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. We're going to tuck that first wrap right in behind the, right in front of, sorry, the lead wraps. I'm going to trim down this little tag in just a little bit more. Otherwise we'll have to play with it later. There we go. Alright, and then what I like to do is stretch that back. That's going to cover our lead. Just right on top there, and go back, kind of letting up on that tension just a little bit, right as it starts to curve down that shank, and then tie that down real good. Don't use any glue on these. You totally could, only because as I wrap this forward, and sometimes I use the rotary function on the Norvise, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how the material is working for me. And the reason is because if you use an adhesive and you were to make a wrap forward, let's say, you're like, ooh, I don't like the way that's segmented, and you go back, you start pulling material, and it doesn't look too happy. So I do have the side that I want up currently down, if that makes any sense, because when I make my first wrap, I'm going to come over the hook like so. That'll expose that top side. So my first wrap is kind of playing it by ear. I just want to make it look like it has a nice taper, if you can kind of see that in the rear side, so it's not super bunchy. And start wrapping forward. A little bit of tension, that's the key. You can use your rotary function. I typically will keep my bobbin right there. I want you put it on, put it out beside me, and I have a little bit of tension on my vise as well. So when I let go of my vise, it's not spooling on me. And wrap forward. And it just lays out. Try to get my finger out of the way so you guys can see it a little bit better. I normally have it out towards the camera as I wrap forward, but for this, we'll change it up. Okay, so when you start getting to the eye here, I'm going to let off one wrap. I pull it pretty tight. I come up, push out towards the camera, towards you guys, and do one wrap, switch hands, get some tension on there, and then I do 4 or 5 behind that. That'll secure that piece. Now, as you can see here, you have nice segmentation like a larva would have, and on this straight shank and these bigger hooks, it just gives it that awesome profile. So, you know, if you wanted to sit there and put a UV resin over this, you could. I kind of like that gummy feeling to it. I think the fish would too, and I just don't really think it's necessary. Some people on their Cranefly larva will have some type of a differentiation of color up here, like some do. I've never done that before. I know Sun Tao has, and I'm spacing on the name of the tire, but he does one with the same material that you use on squirmy wormies, and it's just fantastic. It looks amazing. This is just a variation that I like and that I have confidence fishing, and that's, you know, super easy to tie up a dozen for your box and call it good. So hope it works out for you guys as well. I'm excited to spend the next couple years fishing this fly specifically. All right, so got a little bit of separation on my thread here. This is 12-aught nano silk from Semperfli. It's about all I use anymore. If you guys have used it, you know why. It's incredibly forgiving, it's incredibly strong, and the diameter is nothing, so you can put a ton of thread wraps on something and have hardly any buildup, which is nice. Tie it off, and I put a little bit of head cement up here as well, just to kind of hold that where it is. I like the Vineyard Cellar myself. Just to finish that off, get those thread wraps nicely coated, and you're done. It's a really easy pattern, guys. Very earthy. It's not super beautiful, I get it, I totally understand. You know, we're not doing a bunch of wire wraps and a backing on it and UV resin, but you know, sometimes those more simple flies are the best. You know, you're not sitting there. So I can focus in on that a little bit. Of course, Steve, it's a 12-aught. It's the Semperfli Nano Silk. You can use whatever color you want. I have it in quite a few colors. White might be the best one to purchase. That way you can just have a few Sharpies that you use to color it at the end, if that makes sense. So the white, you know, you're not going to see on most flies as you work up the hook, and then when you get to the end, just take 3 or 4 inches and color it with a Sharpie of your color choice, and then finish it off. So, hey Edward, how's it going, buddy? No, you're definitely not late. We're only 13 minutes in, so we're going to tie quite a few more of these. So yeah, 12-aught in the Nano Silk is just fine. This is black. Black goes pretty much good with anything, so you're not going to go wrong with that. But, you know, think about this, say, as an anchor fly or that second fly in a tandem setup. You know, you could have a scud above it. You could have a nymph. You could have a San Juan worm. You know, that's kind of a combo I love, is a Cranefly larva and a San Juan worm. In smaller rivers or bigger, you know, after a heavy rain when the water is kind of stabilized and stuff, I mean, that's a deadly combo. You really can't go wrong with it. It's just meaty and earthy. So that's in a tan. I believe that's the color tan. For those of you who just came, here is the Exo Skin. Hairline carries it. It's a Kylie's Exo Skin. Just, I mean, looks like flesh of some sort. It's really wild stuff. Here's some other colors. This one has some copper throughout. You can see this kind of glimmer. Try to get it to kind of shine for you guys. It's got some copper, yellowish, dark browns. It's wild. You can kind of see a little bit of the sheen to it. In person, you can see it a lot more. Basically, what you're seeing there is like a brownish speckle on it. That's copper. And then we also have this kind of a lighter tan color, probably what most would associate a Cranefly larva or some type of a worm. Kind of has a yellowish orangish appearance to it, but it's perfect for these because it kind of gives it that fleshy look. I was kind of surprised when I heard from that gentleman about these, about cranefly larvae. You know, I guess I just assumed there was probably a few different species of them, and you know, that's why all cranefly larvae that I had seen were kind of that grayish, tan, brown color. But he said no, there's dozens and dozens of species of them. They come in all different kinds of sizes. Just get wild with it, so that's kind of cool. You know, I wouldn't necessarily tie them in like a bright lime green, but any variation of a tan or, you know, browns, dark browns. Hell, you could probably even tie them black. So here's a Gamaris. I put them into my jaws to where the top of the jaw is pretty much in line with the eye. Put a little bit of tension on that and tighten it down. Reason being is I come over this hump and start going down to where I'm going to tie off. This hook position works the best for me. So, all right, let's try this one on a Gamaris. This is a size 2. It's a size 4. It's the NS, the Nordic Salt Series 172 curved Gamaris from Arex. I tie them in the 4 and the 2 in these cranefly larvae. I will put down a pretty nice thread base here so that my lead does not slide, and I'll go to about there. Put down a nice thick thread base. You're not going to waste much with this nano silk. It's incredible. Alright, same thing, 030 lead. You could use 025, 020 if you want to get crazy, but just something that is not overly large or too small. And I do another 10, 11 wraps right on that hump. Alright, and put some thread wraps over it. So right on that hump, we'll give it that profile that we want. Get it tied down here good. Nothing pretty, guys, just get it covered. Alright, and then back down just about 1/8 of an inch shy of the eye. Maybe throw up for these Gamaris, throw in a little 1/2 inch there just to keep it from sliding down. And let's use this lighter color here. And those of you who are just joining us, about a 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 5/8, I'm sorry, 5/8, 5/16 wide strip. Don't even need to be pretty about it. Just pretty consistent. Once you stretch out that material, it's going to hide all of those flaws anyway, so don't need to get crazy about it. So you have two sides. You have a dull side, like a lot of materials, and you have the skin side up, if you will. Put that skin side down and tie this material in by the eye there. Kind of pulling back a little bit. You can see that profile start to build. That's what we want. And as we get towards the back, lighten up on that pressure just a little bit and go about 1/8 inch shy of where your tops of your jaws are. That'd be a good place to stop. And then tie back forward. Get that material nicely laid down. Give a good base for our wraps forward. Okay. I like to put a 1/2 inch at this point here and let it hang. So this first wrap, as I said on the previous one, kind of just want to go nice and slow. Make sure that the material doesn't fold over itself. There we go. And start wrapping forward. I tend on these Gamaris, hand wrap it. Give it a little tug on your downward stroke there. Okay. And then maybe with your offhand, kind of as you hit the straight of this hook, the shank, is kind of hold down each previous wrap just to make sure it doesn't slide too much, and then it will stay. Okay. Coming down on our last 2 wraps here, same thing as the other one. I get to the eye, I pull straight down, come behind it with my thread, kind of get all that material. Don't pull too hard. This nano silk is like a fine, it's not wire, I'm not saying it like that, but it's like a fine wire. It's somewhat sharp on some foams, some rubber type materials. It will cut through it if you do it too hard. Just do a couple light wraps, maybe go around that material one more time, and oop, missed it. And do 4 or 5 securing wraps before you cut it away. Get as close to your hook as you can when you tie it off. Sometimes you'll lose that material. If that happens while I'm tying, we'll just go do exactly what we would do in a normal situation and redo it. There's nothing wrong with something breaking and having to figure it out. Finish off your fly. Now what I've noticed on these Gamaris is you don't have a whole lot of thread because it kind of just tucks right in behind this blob of material. So you can throw in a little bit of a head cement on the underside, which is about all you're going to have exposed. So that works out. And again, just easy peasy. Hey guys, welcome. We're tying some Cranefly Larvae here. Glad you guys came in. So another thing about this too, and I get asked every once in a while when I'm on a live, why do you not put a super glue like a Zap-A-Gap or a Gorilla Glue or whatever on top of your thread and lead? A couple reasons I stated when we were doing our first fly would be that for me personally, I tend to screw up wraps often, and if that's, say that I make a wrap coming forward like such or like so, and I go, oh, I don't like that, and I go to pull that material back, some of those glues just immediately cure to that material, and I can't make that wrap backwards. So that's one reason. Number two, most of these materials are pretty inexpensive, and I can churn out several dozen off of just one sheet. So if I were to screw one up that bad on a fish, I just kind of take it as a cool experience that fish completely obliterated this fly, and move on. I totally respect those that like to load flies up with super glue. I'm just personally not one. I'll put some head cement on most of them after I'm done tying, and that's about it. So I just like to be able to move that material around. And I know, perfection is not necessarily what we're going for here, but nonetheless, just my personal preference. Sean, this is Kylie's Exo Skin. Hairline carries it. It comes in a variety of different colors and sheens, like dozens. This is just a few of the ones that I like for Cranefly Larvae. Show you here some browns, some tans, combination of both. It's really cool. And it's thick too. It's probably 1 millimeter thick. I mean, it's got some thickness to it. It's durable. And it's gummy. So I think when they latch onto it with their teeth, it feels somewhat natural. But so yeah, that's on the curved Gamaris. Again, probably wouldn't make it your lead fly, only because when this is twisting, say you were to tie on your trailer, I know a lot of you guys have your fancy knots you use from the eye, still wouldn't probably be your best bet with this, to have it be a lead fly. Likewise, if you were to do it from the bend, totally can, and I've done it, but I'd maybe make this your trailer, your anchor fly, whatever, to really get down, so you could use it, again, with a scud, a nymph, a San Juan worm, anything. It's a really versatile pattern. You have this thing rocking on a super rainy day or after a heavy rain. It's meaty. There's not many fish, I hate to say it, but there's not many fish species we go after that won't take a worm. That's just the reality of it. Fish, steelhead, trout, any warm water species, pretty much anything. I know buddies that use, worms for saltwater, and I've caught tarpon on an actual night crawler. So it's the humility in it all, I guess. So just remember, something meaty like this, they may not take it as a Cranefly larva, maybe a grub or a small worm, but I'll take the fish over the argument, I guess. So yeah, there's the segment. That's the tan, I believe, is the color of this Exo Skin. Really cool. That's what kind of the color I would normally associate with a cranefly larva, but if it had a little bit of dirt or discoloration or is a different type of species, you could use some of these darker colors. There's not one in particular I'd start off with. I think they're all pretty effective. I'm going to tie another one on this curved Gamaris. I think it's a pretty killer profile. For those of you who are just joining, I'd eat that. I'd eat it too, man. Don't do it though. Anyway, there's about the orientation. I like it to be in the jaws. Have the eye, the tip of the eye, about in line with the top of the jaws. Cinch her up. I haven't thrown some feather on it at all, man. I haven't thrown feather, dubbing, none of it. I kind of touched on that in the beginning, and my reasoning behind that is because I like it to be a simple pattern. I don't really think it needs it a whole bunch, to be honest with you. I know that some cranefly larvae up towards, their eyes, they have some discoloration. You could take a Sharpie if you wanted to create that. Some people put a ton of UV resin on it. I kind of like that gummy, just natural feel to it. I think the fish would too. I don't know. I haven't put anything up in front yet. There's a lot of things you could do. You could not counter, but you could follow up your wraps of Exo Skin with some type of a wire in between each one of those segments. Oops. If you really wanted to. Sure, there's a bunch of things you could do with it. I just choose not to, I guess. But also, for those joining, you could use a straight shank, like these 571s from Arex. You can use a curved Gamaris, also from Arex, their Nordic Salt series, NS172. Whatever you want, but a lot of those 2s and 4s are kind of a sweet spot, in my opinion, for size-wise. A lot of guys like smaller, like 8s and 6s. For me, it's kind of go big or go home with these. Typically, when you're fishing them, the water's a little bit silty. So something to stand out a little bit. Plus, the cranefly larvae that I have seen in person were quite large in Central Oregon. So I have my thread wrapped back to about 1/8 of an inch. Right above the jaws there. It's a good place to hold off until we wrap our lead. This is 030, I believe. Yeah, 030. Lead-free wire, 10 or 11 wraps right over that hump. No exact, you could not use any lead if you wanted to. It's up to you. Just like to get it down in those higher flows. Maybe I should fish these in like a heat of summer. I've just I'm so focused on other things, and you're always fishing caddis and other types of nymphs, and people are euro nymphing or pulling small streamers on at least on the rivers that I fish these on. Small black, green, brown, little woolly buggers. I don't really see anybody fishing, or never have talked to, I guess, to somebody fishing a cranefly larva, but why not? Maybe do it a little less weighted. So experiment. That's what fly tying is all about. Anyway, all right, about 1/8 of an inch from the eye. A little hitch in there, just keeps my thread from moving on me. Let's try this brownish copper. It's got like almost an olive tone to it. I love this color. I wish I could show you guys how it shines. Maybe I can if I move it enough. It's almost like there's copper embedded in it. It's really cool. I guess if there was any sunlight penetrating the water column, they would see that, I'm sure. Yeah, it's not coming out as much as I wanted to in the video, but nonetheless, take my word for it. Alright, about 1/4 inch, 5/16, little strip. Again, doesn't need to be very pretty. As you pull tension on this material, all those imperfections are going to be hidden anyway the more you stretch it, so it's kind of nice. Just take it, your top side down, if you will, and I just kind of cup it. hold it right over the top, give it about 5 securing wraps, and pull some tension and wrap backwards. We're starting that base for our material, and as we get to the back, let up a little bit on the tension so it doesn't pull and snap back on you. See how it kind of stays where you want it to, and get that tied down real good. Okay, come up to the eye, tie down that little tag there. There we go. Oop. Throw a 1/2 inch in there. I'm not going to put my thread on the cradle just because I like to be able to do a quick changing of hands when I get up to this before it unravels on me. It does happen quite often. And that first wrap, again, I just kind of try to, hey Joe, how's it going, bud? Try to make sure that this material is flattened out as much as I can for that first wrap. There we go. And wrap forward. This little 1/8 inch spread in the segmentation is about what I like to do. And as I kind of crest this hump here, I'll put a little bit of pressure with my offhand, the pointer finger, down on that wrap until I get that tension on the wrap coming after it, if that makes sense. So right now, I hold down, put a little bit of tension on the downward pull of that wrap, and then it will secure itself. And 2 more wraps. Okay, a little bit of tension for that final one. Come down, switch hands to my left. I'm a right-handed tire. Come around that material, cinch it up, a couple wraps. Come up behind it again, and 5 or 6 or however many wraps you want. Now, if you're using like a Viva 6/0 or a 5/0, or I'm sorry, 8/0, that's a lot thicker than this 12/0 nano silk. You're gonna have to be a little bit minimalistic with your thread wraps, in my opinion. The reason is because you're gonna start building that head, and when you go to turn this over and snip off your excess Exo Skin, it's gonna unravel on you. Typically, I'll hit my thread somehow, I'm not sure how, and it will unravel. With this 12/0, it digs into that material and it really holds it well. Not to say I don't unravel sometimes, but all in all, I don't. I don't have that issue too much. So finished it off a nice little head. You can hardly see it. This 12/0 nano silk is not only incredibly strong, it's made by Semperfli, but it's also very small diameter. So. Alright, so there it is in that darker brown copper on a Gamera size 4 NS172 from Arex. Going to put a little bit of head cement on the underside. There's not much of an area on top to put it, but that's where I cut my thread anyway, so that'll hold that down. So out of the people watching right now, I appreciate everybody joining us this evening. If you guys, I'm by no means an expert on fishing cranefly larvae by any means. So if anybody has any insight, please share with the rest of the group, their insights. Anywho, Christopher, how's it going? Steven, Timothy, thanks guys for joining. I just find this to be such a great searching pattern on streams. When you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I haven't got anything Euro nymphing. I haven't got anything on, emergers or dries or what have you. I don't really see anything popping off on the surface. This is kind of that fly that I'll go with another fly that's kind of that go-to in that situation for me is a San Juan worm. I fish a lot of scuds, a lot of San Juan worms in all colors, pinks, yellows, browns, reds, greens, olive, green sometimes, scuds in kind of a rainbow color, which is a great color combo for scuds, as well as kind of a orange, scud orange, green, what have you, and then I'll use these cranefly larvae as an anchor fly. Seems to work really well. It's kind of a you're at your end of your rope, if you will, mentally going, what the heck? I haven't got a single fish today. I don't really see them rising. I'm not seeing them coming up for emerging, pupas or anything like that. I don't see any caddis popping off. There's just nothing going on. This would be that pattern that I would go to, and I'd have a good selection of them in your box in a variety of sizes. It's not really something I've ever sat there and dug into the silt for, to the mud on the riverbank to see what they look like. It's just, when I have seen them, they seem to be kind of that fleshy color, and that's what I've always thought. But those of you who are just joining, I had a cool experience talking to a gentleman on Facebook who is a biologist here in Oregon, and he was telling me that there was more species of craneflies than mayflies, and I didn't know that. And he says, yeah, they're incredibly understudied, but his line of studying, or his niche, was the certain type of insect, and craneflies fell under that, and they're incredibly understudied. So, for us as fly fishermen, change up your colors. It's not like this is something where we're trying to match a hatch exactly. When it's washed off the riverbank, and in a heavy rain, and they're just going down, it could still be covered in mud. It could be covered in whatever. These aren't going to be a perfect, immaculate looking larva in the first place. So having a variety of colors to fish isn't going to hurt anything. Browns, tans, whatever you can find. You can use like scudback if you really wanted to, though it is a little thin and hard to build up that profile. This Exo Skin is about 1 millimeter thick, so you do have a lot more luck building a body with it. Let's try a straight shank again. For those of you just joining, we're doing straight shanks. We're doing a curved, Gamaris. You could tie them on a size 6 curved nymph hook if you wanted to. Sky's really the limit, so be experimenting and figuring out what works best for you in your home waters. I live in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, so we fish these, in Central Oregon, and I haven't really fished them anywhere else. So you guys, you're from all over the United States, and I've seen a couple guys here from Europe that, you guys may have a totally different experience. Next time, Richard, next time I will. I'm not set up for scuds right now. It'd take me 10 minutes to dig out the stuff for that. But Todd, as an anchor fly, are you tying off of the shank or the top? Okay, so that's a good question. I know there's a bunch of fancy knots to the eye of the hook for your lead fly. I don't particularly care for them yet. I just really don't have a whole lot of experience doing that. And then going off to my trailer fly, I particularly, for this fly at least, I probably wouldn't tie off the shank as a lead fly on this Gamaris, but on the straight shank I would. That's just personal preference. Nor if I was going to use a curved fly for the lead fly, would I tie off on the eye, because I would be afraid of line wrap and just getting tangled up. So either from the shank, whatever you guys like to do. How about that? I know that's a thing I'll see on forums and in conversations. Like, whatever works for you guys. I mean, good Lord, it doesn't take a argument, I guess. But I personally tie off the shank to my second fly, and I've never had issues with that. All right, so we'll tie one. This is a size 4 FW571. It's just a long dry. It's actually a dry fly hook from Arex, but I like the curvature of the hook, as well as it being long like this without being like an extra long streamer hook. So I do tie them on the 571s quite often, and we'll tie this one in this brown color. Just look at the texture on this thing. It's super cool. And it's super, I mean, there's a few little bumps in it, but it's actually very smooth. So I know when you guys are looking at it, if you've never played with this material, it looks like it would have a bunch of lumps in it, but it's relatively smooth and easy to wrap, easy to handle, easy to cut. It's killer. We're just going to take and cut our strip about 1/4 inch wide. All right. And on this material, there is an underside and a top side. I like to have that top side facing down when I tie it in, And I'm going to do this one unweighted. I didn't tell you guys that. We were briefly at the beginning talking about doing them unweighted for summer versus fall. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to tie a thread base down and see if I can't make this look good. I haven't tied one unweighted yet, so I'm not sure what the taper is like. And come forward to the eye. I'm throwing a 1/2 inch, about 1/8 of an inch back, so that my material doesn't slide, nor does my thread. What you want showing when you tie this in, tie it downward. So face that side down, a couple securing wraps, and I like to pull that material backward as I tie it in and kind of loosen up on it a little bit towards the end so it doesn't slingshot towards the eye of the hook, and come forward. And I'll throw in another 1/2 inch for good measure. Okay. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I didn't get out fishing, but I know some of you guys have. I've been seeing some names here, guys I've been seeing pictures of. That's awesome. Let me scroll up here to see if there's any pictures that, or pictures, comments, I'm sorry, that I did not see. James, you said, I want to add a squirmy wormy body to it. You can use that material. I have it in tan. I use it quite often for another type of cranefly larva. Really effective, a little bit harder to use, but very gummy. Richard, you said you just got some cranefly larvae, but not sure how to use them. I like to use them as a lead fly or an anchor fly, whatever term you want to use, front or back in a tandem or by itself, and just fish them deep and kind of knocking on the bottom. It's the best luck I've had. I think I addressed the others. Cool. All right, we'll get this one going and wrap her forward. Okay, so just like the other ones, when I start that first wrap, kind of just be nice and slow. I'm going to put the thread in the cradle on this one, and we're going to wrap it forward. First wrap, though, we're going to do by hand. So you get a nice tapered backside there. Do one more by hand, wrapping forward. And then I like some tension on my vise. I don't like to just be free spooling, because as soon as you pull tension, if you're using a Nor-vise, or actually a lot of rotary vices, it'll start spooling on you. You have that much tension on this. So just kind of tighten that screw down and take her slow, moving up. About 1/8 of an inch between each segment. It'll start coming to life. I like that. A little bit more slender than I would like for a cranefly larva, but that's not a bad thing. All right, and we come to our final wrap there. We'll take our thread off the cradle and pull some tension coming behind it with our thread and cinching it up. A couple wraps. Come around to the back side of it, cinch it up again, and as many thread wraps as you feel necessary to tie that in. And on this one, I am going to finish it off before I cut that material. There we go. I just love this material. It is just too cool. All right. And cut our material off and put some head cement on there on the underside. So it's kind of a longer, slender one, but it's going to catch fish, that's for sure. Another thing, too, to mention, guys, we were talking about super glue at the beginning, or I was. I don't really use super glue a ton. Every once in a while, if I'm trying to really not care about the look of a fly, I'll use it. It doesn't matter what it is, Zap-A-Gap, Gorilla Glue, any type of super glue with a brush, that's fine. But with this material, I don't know how it reacts to super glue, so I can't tell you. Another thing too, when I'm wrapping a segmented body forward like this, if I'm wrapping forward and I come back, let's say like, ooh, I don't like the way that looks, like so, and I go to lift up and it's already cured to that rubber or whatever the body material I'm using is, I can't go back because it's already cured with that super glue. So that means these materials, if you tie quite a bit, even if you don't, they're pretty inexpensive, guys. And if you're going to have a fly like this unravel on, your 10th fish of the day, then, I call that a good day, and have a couple dozen of them in your box and call it good. I try to put down a nice thread base so that it doesn't fail on me, and I like to tie it off a certain way, and I really don't have them unravel on me, hardly any type of fly I do. So unless it's just a really sharp tooth fish species and it just obliterates it, then that's kind of cool too when that happens. But there it is, unweighted on a straight shank. I don't mind that at all. It's actually kind of cool. You can see the segments in it. It is a little more slender than I would like it to be, but hey, it'll fish. They might not even take it as a cranefly larva in any way. It could just be a type of worm or a grub or who knows, but I'll take it. I'll take the fish. Let's tie another one for comparison on a straight shank, and we'll do it weighted, and we'll see what the difference is. Put down a thread base before we put our lead down. I like to go back, forward, and then back again when I'm putting down lead. Keeps everything from sliding. Just a personal preference. I know we all got our style. I'm by no means a professional tyer, so whatever that is, just like to have fun and tie to fish. So this is 030 lead-free wire. Let's start about a third of the way up, and let's heavily weight this one. Actually, I'm gonna put even more than I gave myself room for here. Let's tie like 15 wraps. Really get this one down. And stop right there. Alright, put some thread wraps over there. Tied down. A lot of guys would put some glue on here. Do that at this time if that's your gig. And finish off about, just actually right in front of that lead wire on this one. We'll throw in a 1/2 inch and do brown again so we can get that comparison. About a 1/4 inch strip of this stuff, guys. Like I said before on the others, don't need to be pretty with it. It's about a 1/4 inch, 5/16, whatever suits your fancy. All those imperfections aren't going to matter. So as you can see, it's a jagged cut. Not worried about it. Take your top side and put it down. And secure that with about 3 or 4 wraps. Put some tension on it, directing backward towards the rear of the hook. Tie back. As I get back here, I'll kind of give it a little give. Oops. Come forward again. All right. Throw in a couple 1/2 inches. And now we're going to wrap forward. So that first wrap, kind of spread out your material. I go, as you can see here, it's almost touching the jaws. That's kind of my indicator there where I want it to be. Make one full wrap and then start angling it forward. About 1/8 inch segmentations is what I'm shooting for, at least. Some good tension on this. Not a ton, like you don't want to cinch it down too much. It tends to have a higher likelihood of unraveling on me, so I tend to kind of find that moderate tension and wrap her forward. I think somebody just asked which species I use these for. Thank you for answering that, Chris. Yeah, I've only used these for trout. Just trout on rivers is what I primarily use them for. You could use them for any warm water species. It would just be like a grub or a worm, you know, but I just never used them for that. Okay, there's my final wrap. I'm going to pull my thread off the cradle, come behind the skin, wrap a few times, do it again, just right behind it, and then kind of lift up your thread parallel, I'm sorry, not parallel, I would say level to your hook, and come around it again. That holds it good. Many thread wraps as you feel necessary to hold that in. I'm going to tie it off first. Cinch that down good. Cut off my thread and then the material. One would say, well, what if that let loose? Then I would probably start over the fly. But most of the time when I've had it unravel is when I'm cutting the thread and I've already, when I'm cutting the material and the thread is still attached and there's not much of a tag in to do it anyway, so the fly is kind of compromised. I've been waiting for it to happen on live, and we would just go with the flow if that happened. And I'm going to put a little bit of this cellar from Vineyard on here. It's the head cement I like to use. Just a little bit on the underside where I tied off. A little bit added strength to it, and that's it. Really simple fly, guys. But to give you a comparison, that's our difference there of thickness. So I like the weighted one more. It gives it that little bit beefier look, but we're just going for profile. As long as that segmentation is there, you know, it looks earthy, it looks like a larva of some sort, you're going to catch fish. Incredibly underrated, and not pattern, because this isn't a pattern, it's just using a material to imitate a fly, but I guess like anything, but it's just, there's no name to this. It's an underrated insect species, in my opinion, both dry and larva stage. Dries can be wicked for panfish. I've fished for bass, or sorry, I fished for panfish with cranefly adults, the dry, and have got bass on them, largemouth. I'm sure smallmouth would go after them, and then the same with these larvae. If you're fishing them even under an indicator in a lake situation, I'm sure a trout would take them eagerly. But I've only fished them on rivers myself for the larvae here. So yeah, super simple, super easy. You know, you could have a variety of these in your box with different types of hooks. What you'd end up with is kind of just a combination of options, guys. Just what you want anyway, you know. Doesn't matter what thread color, doesn't matter, within reason with this material, what hook size. I wouldn't go any smaller than an 8, personally, just because it's too bulky. And with the Gamaris, you could go a little bit smaller, of course, because you do have this wide gape. But I stick to the 2s, 4s, and 6s myself. Cool material though, right? It's different. It just has a different look to it. It looks awesome when it's wet. It comes to life. With this Gamaris, you tend to get a lot more wiggle and wrap. Not a whole lot of leader twist, nothing crazy. It's not like it's sitting there like a windmill or anything, but you do get some movement that you don't get as much with a straight shank. So I hope that, guys, I hope that helps you. Hopes it kind of adds a little something to your toolbox, if you will. Let's see here. Hey Sven, yeah, so we were talking about the super glue thing. I think you joined just after. I know you like putting super glue down on just about everything. I do on a lot of things as well. On these, my only reason I don't is, and I'm sure you've used the Exo Skin, is if I'm making, say I put a whole bunch of super glue down and I don't let it dry because that's just, I'm impatient, and I go to wrap down and I want to lift back up, I don't want to sit there and try to take 2 or 3 wraps back and it's already cured to the Exo Skin. So you totally could. I know like the gel Gorilla Glue that I use a lot, or I guess it's not gel, but here's one I use a lot. I use the Zappa Gap quite a bit as well. Brush on. It has a couple minutes to not cure, but nonetheless, I've never had one of these unravel on me on a fish. I've had it where I cut it too close and I cut my thread or what have you and have it unravel while I'm tying, but it's on there. I mean, I'm sitting here putting great tension on the material and it doesn't slide. It just kind of bites into itself, and I haven't had any issues with it yet. But you totally could. I'm not confident enough in my wraps to be perfect to use it, but yeah, you could. And I also, another thing too is I don't know how it reacts to the super glue, to be honest with you. I don't know if it makes it brittle or what it does, so once I find that out, then we'll give it a shot. Yeah, multitude of colors, guys. Go check out, many companies carry this Exo Skin. It's called Kylie's Exo Skin. Variety of colors, get wild with it. There's a ton of different species, a ton of different sheens and colors you can use, and there's a ton of species of Cranefly larvae, craneflies in general, that you are trying to imitate anyway, depending on where you live. So experiment a little bit, see what works best for you. I tie it in these 3 colors. I don't know if you could tie it in a lime green and have much success, but hey, I don't know. It's a personal preference. Any other questions, guys? We got about 4 more minutes before I'm going to get timed out here. UV glue, good question, Clifford. We touched on that a little bit earlier, but not in great length. So I like the Pro Sport Fisher thin. It's a thin flex. Solarez makes a great one. Gulf. They all make great UV resins. My thing for this one is I like the gumminess to it. I like how natural it feels. As soon as, in my opinion, a fish, a smaller larva or something like that, I don't think it's going to matter as much. But being that this, it's about 1 inch long, at least 7/8, 1 inch long, putting a bunch of UV resin over it, it kind of loses that gumminess and that natural appeal, in my opinion. But yeah, go for it. Give it a shot and see what works for you. You lose Loctite gel. Yeah, I know you use that Loctite. Okay, awesome. I'll know that for the future. I'll put a little bit on there and see what it does for me. It's not going to do any damage, then I'm all for it. Appreciate that. Thank you, David. I appreciate everybody joining today. That's awesome. I hope you guys kind of have something else for your toolbox. I know it's not a fancy fly, but if it's effective and it catches fish, especially in those times of the year where, if you don't have a great October caddis hatch, or the weather's been weird, temperature's temperamental, river flows, depending if it's dammed or not, or heavy runoff from heavy rains, kind of that early fall rain some of you guys get. This would be something to put on. Put it on with a scud. Put it on with a San Juan worm. Whatever your, floats your boat, Euro nymph, whatever. And give it a shot. See what it does for you. And let me know. I mean, this is not like my pattern or anything. It's just using one material to create a cranefly larva, but I haven't really seen it done too much for cranefly larvae, so I figured I'd give it a go, and it's been really cool for me. Any other questions I can answer for you guys? Hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday and good start to the week. Odd times for sure, so get on the vise, get on the river, have some fun, get some fresh air, take your family out. Can't hurt anything. Lawrence, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for dropping by. All right. Well, very cool. I appreciate you guys joining me today. This video will be up on YouTube. Tim and Tyler in the next couple days will get it up on the YouTube channel, so you can watch it in its entirety if you feel like it, or share it. You guys will see it when they post it, so it'll be on the Norvise page as well as the Norvise YouTube channel. Awesome. Thanks, Charles, Clifford, Joe. Appreciate it, buddy. I know this one's a close personal favorite of yours. Joe Do, guys, if you don't follow him, you need to on Instagram and Facebook. Joe is an incredible artist. He just illustrated this fly recently. You can see it on his Facebook page. Backward hook on Instagram, I believe. Maybe write it down there, Joe. I don't know how it's exactly laid out for Instagram, but I believe it's Backward Hook Productions. Correct me if I'm wrong before this taps out in the next minute, so everybody can go see it. So, Mark, thank you so much. Mike, appreciate it as well. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk to you later.